So today we are gonna talk about lore skippers versus lore readers in Genshin Impact. And I feel like this drama has been too murky, and I was about to make a rant video about this whole drama, but I stopped myself. So we are going through the points of people who are not really attacking but criticizing some of these CCs who don't play Genshin for the lore. So here are my problems with the criticism. This is the first comment. I'm gonna blur the name for out of respect. Bro, all we ask them is to show some interest slash curiosity towards the lore of the games that your whole content revolves around. The problem with this criticism is, why do they need to know the lore of the game? Not everyone who's playing Genshin wants to play for the lore. I feel like it's just an unrealistic criticism to criticize people on not knowing the lore. And that's the problem I have. This is like the whole Undertale situation. Why are you forcing people to play the pacifist route? Let them play how they want to play. Same with this. Why are you trying to force them to learn the lore of the game? Genshin does not only revolve of lore. I mean, you could say that the video, the God's Will, you could say that it is based on the lore. And yeah, sure, but you can still watch the video without knowing the lore, right? So this is the problem I have with many of the criticism criticizing these CCs who are not knowing the lore. Another type of criticism that I see, people are allowed to criticize some CCs for not knowing the lore and that they're not being toxic. Yes, you are able to criticize anyone, right? Because it's freedom of speech. But then you also need to be prepared for the consequences. And some of the comments were being toxic, or not really being toxic, but they're saying it in a way where they're making it seem like, oh, the people who don't know about the lore don't put any effort. This comment says, no one is expecting these CCs to know before Sun and Moon word for word, but at least to have a basic understanding of things that are pretty explicitly mentioned and explained in the story, like a couple of those CCs were confusing Isroth and Nibirius when we get told who they are and what their powers are in the main story. Why do they need to have a basic understanding of things? Again, some people are not playing it for the lore. So many people, CCs and the community, have spread a lot of misconceptions about the lore. And the lore community has to rework these misconceptions. Things like Sigewinne and Furina being Rairo and Nuvi's daughters, Raiden is Beelzebub and not Bao, etc. Yes, I do agree that if you're not someone who is very knowledgeable in the lore, that you shouldn't say things about the lore. Not everyone needs to learn the lore. I think I understand that if you don't know anything about the lore, don't talk about the lore because you might spread misconceptions. I agree with that. Just because some people spread misconceptions about the lore does not mean that that when you're reacting to a video, you need to know what the lore is about. I think that we shouldn't spread misconceptions if you don't know anything, and I feel like this next comment sums it up pretty nice. Where, be it lore seekers, if you're not a player in any of those aspects, don't spread misinformation. I agree with this. Don't spread misinformation about the lore or combat and whatever. Some people's criticism is that you need to show some interest in the lore, when that's not the case. You do not need to show interest in the lore if you're not a lore player. So I feel like people's frustration is combining these two separate arguments. One argument is wrong. You do not need to learn the lore of the game. But one argument makes sense. Don't spread misconceptions. And I feel like people are combining these two because people who spread misconceptions are people who do not learn the lore. But again, that is a fallacy. Another type of comments is, these are slop contents. The people reacting to it are slop contents. Because some people bring up that, yeah, but it's being pushed by the algorithm. But the problem I have with this is, why are you blaming the CCs? Blame the algorithm, right? It's always going to bring in views. And I feel like this problem is not about lore. So there's like 3 types of arguments, or maybe 4 types of argument that people have. Which is, firstly, the first argument is they need to have a basic understanding of lore. That's the first argument. The second argument is that we can criticize CCs and have a discussion on why we do not like them. The third argument, don't spread misconceptions about the lore. And the fourth argument is that they are reacting is slop because they're not adding any value to the video. In a conclusion, this is my silver discussion about the problems with lore skippers versus lore enjoyers, basically. And again, if you disagree with what I'm saying, that's fine. I want to see what you guys are gonna say, because maybe I'm misinterpreting what you're saying. But this is the comments I've seen, and maybe you can put it down in the comments to saying if I'm wrong. All right. So yeah, this is Wimil signing out.